Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. You know, there are times when I despair. There really are. Today's going to be one of those times, I think, simply because I feel this subject's going to come up again in a big way as a result of the release of Aliens Colonial Marines, which is getting absolutely pasted. I do mean pasted in a way I've never seen before by the gaming press. For a major AAA release, it is getting hammered into the ground. I am utterly shocked. I am really am. I expected it to maybe be sort of average, and people say, oh, it's okay, but, you know, it doesn't really live up to the license. Oh, no. I mean, this thing is getting destroyed. So, I feel that we need to bring up this topic again. And that's the topic of pre-orders. So, last night, I went on Top Sellers. You know what I found? Aliens Colonial Marines. This was before it came out. It was the top seller on Steam. So people were buying this thing, and of course they were doing it sight unseen. There was no demo, and they weren't saving any money on it, and they were getting what exactly? Well, in the case of Steam, they were getting something called the Sharp Stick, which was a gun. Yeah, a slightly different gun. It fired, apparently, sonic harpoon artillery remote projectiles, so little explosive tip darts. And that was pretty much it. So, apparently that was the incentive, and it was enough for people to throw a lot of money down on this thing. Now, you couldn't preload this game, even if you could. It would have been a fairly weird thing to do, considering, well, it's not exactly a big download, it's about 6 gigabytes, so it's not like you're gonna have to download a Blu-ray's worth of content here. This is, of course, just one example. And how many examples do we have to go through and look at pre-order bonuses and say, oh, well, this is not particularly great. This is not much of an incentive for me to throw down money. What a pre-order essentially is, especially if you're doing it on Steam, is you throwing down money, sight unseen, and getting very little benefit for it. And if you do that, the chances are you're not going to be able to get a refund if it turns out the game is a complete stinker. Now bear in mind that Steam will cancel pre-orders, prior of course to the release of the game. What they won't do is give you a refund after the game actually comes out, because it's automatically put on to your actual account itself. That's much more difficult. Generally speaking, Steam will do one for you. Yeah, they'll give you one refund, and then after that, it becomes very difficult to get refunds from Steam for games that you've purchased, whether it just be right there on the day as it's come out, or whether it's pre-ordered and then converted into a purchase after your money has actually been taken. Now, this wouldn't be so much of a problem if there weren't so many games coming out that have review embargoes that hold all of the criticism, the critique, and the reviews and analysis until either the day the game comes out or the day before. There's a lot of this going on. Aliens Colonial Marines is the latest example of that happening. And as a direct result, a lot of people pre-ordered it on Steam before the reviews went up, and now a lot of people have Aliens Colonial Marines, which the critics are saying pretty much across the board, with a couple of exceptions, this game is dreadful. It turns out that Aliens Colonial Marines may have been some kind of gigantic bait and switch, according to people like Jim Sterling, who claims that the demo that the press got to play was actually not part of the game at all. Like, it is not representative of the game because they made something completely different and a lot better solely to impress the actual media themselves, which to me boggles my mind, and as far as I'm concerned should be downright illegal. And that's a gigantic example of false advertising and bait and switch tactics if I ever saw it. But of course this wouldn't be the only game that's had pre-order bonuses and people have actually purchased. I mean, Duke Nukem Forever is another prime example. This is something that got pre-ordered on Steam to the point where it ended up being in the top sellers list. There were a couple of silly little bonuses you could get, and then of course it comes out and it ends up being dreadful. And there are plenty more games that have done exactly that. Tomb Raider, for instance, that is currently available to pre-order on Steam. Now, gotta say, this is of course a much better deal than a lot of the other pre-orders because it comes with various benefits, like it's 10% off, for instance, so you save $5, can't really argue with that, right? And then you've got pre-purchase rewards that are unlocked as more people pre-purchase. Free copy of Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light. Well, that's a game that you could have gotten for $3 on about every Steam sale ever, but it's still a good game. You know, Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light is a genuinely good game. Number 2, the Challenge Tomb DLC for Tomb Raider, an exclusive tomb for Lara to raid. Now, as far as I can tell, it would seem that this is a piece of release DLC, so it looks like someone actually made a level within the game that is only unlocked if they reached a certain level of pre-orders. Well, that's a bit of BS, isn't it? Why don't you just add the content to the game in the first place, and then you have a more full game experience? Then reward number 3, the Endurance DLC pack for Tomb Raider, which we don't know a damn thing about. It says final details will be revealed in January 2013. That has now passed. We don't know what that is. So we have no idea if that's something that's going to be given to you on day 1. It's going to be day 1 DLC, which is obviously a little bit of the game kind of sliced off in order to incentivize you to buy the game that you would have gotten anyway. Or it's a piece of DLC that you'll be getting later on. But of course we don't know. We don't even know what the Endurance DLC pack actually is, because they didn't bother to tell us. So that is a gigantic amount of sight unseen nonsense that you're getting here, and yet people pre-ordered it. Pretty hardcore, I might add. Yesterday, it was in the top 10 on the Steam sellers list. Unbelievable. This is a game that's coming out in March, and yet it was in the top 10. Like, it was above games like Antichamber, a game that's had universal acclaim, and there's tons of stuff on YouTube that allows you to figure out whether or not it's actually worth getting. I mean, it was above Far Cry 3, a game which, once again, received universal acclaim. It even ended up above stuff like Skyrim and Black Ops for a while. Insane, really, when you think about it. And yet, there it was. People were enticed by this whole tiered reward system that they've got going on here. It's like, oh, I'm going to encourage my friends to pre-order because I want the reward tier to go up to the next level so I get more stuff in this game that I haven't played and have absolutely no idea as to whether or not it's going to be any good. Are you seeing how this could be harmful? Please tell me that you are, because I like to have faith in my subscribers, right? I like to think that you're a smart bunch and that the people shitting up the comment section are just the vocal minority, and I shouldn't really pay too much attention to them. It's like a couple of hundred people out of 950,000 subscribers, right? There's bad apples in every barrel. But I am really hoping that you guys see where the problem is here. Now, pre-order bonuses I've railed against for a long time, but you know why pre-order bonuses exist? Because people keep pre-ordering video games, and pre-order bonuses actually work. They entice you into the game itself. They start to get you invested in purchasing the title. This is the same reason why places like GameStop charge $5 for you to pre-order. Now, you can get that back. I mean, it's pretty easy. You just say, oh, I don't want to buy the pre-order anymore. Or hell, you just don't buy it at all. And then the money stays on your account and you can buy something else. So it's like, oh, well, there's no risk in that. Well, yes and no. I mean, why do you think they do this in the first place? It's because it gets you invested in the game. You've already put money down. That means the money you're going to pay on launch day, that's slightly less. You've set up a plan. This is, I'm actually parroting the guy from that Dice Talk. Jesse Shell stated that you get this plan in your mind when it comes to purchase, and deviating from that plan isn't something you want to do. And when you put money down, and this is my speculation, I'm pretty sure it's not his, but the idea is pretty much the same thing. When you put money down, that's a part of your plan. That's a stepping stone towards buying the title. So you become more committed to buying it. You become more likely to actually pick it up in the first place. Even though you know that you haven't really invested anything, you've still put some money down. It's a little bit easier. It's a little bit cheaper on launch day for you, even though it's the same price anyway. You just happen to have split some of the cost. So that's why GameStop does it, because they realize it's an effective tactic to make people pre-order and actually convert that pre-order into a real sale. And when it comes to Steam, once the game's out, that's it, you're done. You don't get the chance to refund that. It goes onto your account, it sits there, and then you have to contact Steam support, and maybe they give you the money back, but they probably won't. And for what? What did you gain? A skin pack? Some free game that you could have picked up for $3 on 25 different Steam sales in the past? Some dumb rifle? You're throwing $50 to $60 at a title you know nothing about except for carefully crafted marketing material. How many times do people have to get burned by this? You remember Dead Island? There's a great example. Dead Island, which at least some people like, don't get me wrong, was not in the same ballpark of quality as its trailer. And that marketing trailer was absolute genius. Everyone remembers that. It was one of the best trailers I've ever seen. Got people seriously hyped for the game. It wasn't even in the same solar system of quality as that. And yet people pre-ordered it anyway because, hey, that trailer really impressed me. Duke Nukem Forever, good lord, and the number of pre-order bonuses available there, including a big head mode. How is that a pre-order bonus? Like, that's something you could hack in the .ini files. Not only that, but that's basically some dumb Easter egg. I mean, it's a cheat. It's arguably a bug. Why the hell would you pay for a bug? That's beyond ridiculous. You got a trucker hat if you pre-ordered it at bloody Walmart. Oh yeah, physical piece of pre-order tat. I mean, this is the stuff that we actively avoid getting at trade shows because it bogs you down and it's absolute nonsense. T-shirts? Do you really need gaming t-shirts in your wardrobe desperately to the point where you're willing to risk $60 on something that might suck? Because I can tell you, you can get a lot of pretty good t-shirts for $60. And the physical tat's just one aspect of it. The most harmful thing is the fact that pre-order bonuses and the fact that people are willing to actually pre-order to begin with have encouraged horrible development practices over the course of the years. Now, I'm talking about the notion of taking content that was intended for the game and splitting it off as a pre-order bonus. I'm talking about wasting the time of developers to create specific content for different retailers. I'm talking about the notion that when you buy the game, you can't ever have the complete experience because you didn't buy it from 7 major retailers at once, right? I mean, bloody Dishonored was really bad in this regard. Now, don't get me wrong, not every pre-order bonus actually takes away development time. This is often stuff that's developed by the art department in the months leading up to the launch of the game when the art assets are pretty much complete and they have nothing better to do with their time because they're in crunch and they're finishing content, but all the art stuff's already done. They're doing bug testing. It's nothing that the art department can really help with. I mean, they're not just going to put down their Wacom tablet and then go and debug the game. That's not their speciality. So yeah, they can work on stuff like that. That's fine. No big deal. But a lot of this stuff does, in fact, take away from the development time, and you should never be splitting off parts of the game prior to release in order to incentivize purchase or pre-purchase from various different places. I've told you about how Day 1 DLC is essentially one of the absolute worst things to ever happen to the games industry. Pre-order bonuses are pretty much on that level, and yet they keep doing it because it works, because people will willingly pre-order the game. Now, I suppose it's healthy for the industry, at least in the short term. It's like, hey, great, we've got some money in the bank prior to this game even coming out. This is good. We can show our investors pre-order figures. We can show them actual guaranteed income. This is awesome for us. But it's terrible for the consumer. It's absolutely dreadful. It also encourages really bad review practices. Incredibly bad. And the reason is that if you happen to decide, hey, I'm going to release this game, and I'm going to rely on my marketing material. I'm not going to put out a demo. I'm going to put out some really good trailers. But in reality, this game actually stinks, right? It's in my best interests not to allow the press to actually put out anything on it until the game comes out. This practice has been going on in the games industry for a while. It's been going on in the movie industry for a while. There's a reason why a lot of films don't get pre-screenings, and one of the biggest reasons is they know the film sucks, and they don't want people to know about that prior to it coming out. That maximizes their potential sales, or more accurately, it maximizes their potential suckers. The more people pre-order games, the more of these embargoes we're going to be seeing. Review embargoes are pretty common. They apply to most games. Now, the officially stated reason for this, which is not untrue, is that they need an embargo in order to give all reviewers and critics and everybody a fair chance to have a go at the game and actually write their reviews. There are some people like myself, we do first impressions. It doesn't take me an awful lot of time compared to someone who beats the game and then writes a review. That's why I never call my stuff reviews, right? It doesn't deserve that title. But everyone else who's doing reviews has to play through the game, especially if it's something big like an RPG. It takes a long time to actually get through that. So that's why review embargoes exist. However, they can also be abused. They can restrict the actual coverage of the game all the way up until the release. And if you break that embargo, you get blacklisted. You don't get any more copies. You don't get access to betas. You don't get access to press events where you can actually preview the game and get the kind of material that you need in order to put out good articles and good videos. Let's just say that breaking review embargo is something you will only really do once, because once the word gets around, nobody is going to talk to you anymore. No more PR agencies will actually deal with you. So for the most part, publishers have gaming media by the balls in that respect. They can't risk breaking embargo because it's too damaging for their business, and by the time those reviews actually come out, the game's top seller on Steam. I mean, hell, it was top seller on Steam yesterday and the game wasn't even out yet. It boggles my mind. It really does. It blows me away. There's good news and there's bad news. The bad news is this is our fault for being stupid enough to continue to pre-order these titles when there is no benefit to it whatsoever. It's not even a case of it being no benefit, it's actively damaging the games industry. It's not just like, oh, right, okay, I took a hit for $60. No, you're encouraging terrible business practice. You need to stop it. You really, really do. The good news is it's entirely within our hands. We actually have the opportunity to derail this entire business practice. And you know what we need to do? Learn a bit of patience. It really is that simple. Learn a bit of patience. Those of you sensible enough to be patient and not pre-order Aliens Colonial Marines now have at your disposal a wealth of reviews. The vast majority of them say this game is a stinker and you should not be dropping $50-$60 on it. And that's good. You were patient. And as a result, you were rewarded. Everything is in your favor. If the game had turned out to be good, you could have gone right onto Steam and just bought it right there. Oh, so you miss out on a skin pack or the sharp rifle. Who bloody cares? These things are meaningless. Don't be suckered in. In the case of Tomb Raider, oh, well, I miss out on a free copy of Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light that I could play right now. Let's be honest here. If you actually wanted to play Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light, you would have bought it anyway. I mean, for God's sake, it's been part of so many Steam sales. That game has been out for years. This is not a big bonus to you. If you intended to play it, rather than just add it to your Steam shelf and say, hey, look, I've got an extra game which I'm never going to play, you would have already played it. Tomb Raider might be great. I mean, all signs are pointing to it being pretty good, right? But you don't know that yet. So why would you buy it? I mean, it's just insane. Do you do this with anything else in your life, or is it just games? If it's just games, then take a good hard look at your consumer practices. Take a good hard look at what you do as a consumer and think, is this screwing me? Because the chances are it is. Now, some people are going to come back and say, well, I would have bought it anyway. And there's a big problem, isn't it? Because with Aliens Colonial Marines, you've got a game that a lot of people would have bought anyway because it's an Aliens game. They are loyal to the franchise. They are loyal to the brand. And that's terrible. The reason it's terrible is because these are the guys that go into full-on Stockholm Syndrome, cognitive dissonance fanboy mode as soon as anyone criticizes this game. Here's what's going to happen. The people that pre-ordered this game are going to be split into one of two camps. There's going to be the guys that are like, I got burned hard. And then there are going to be the other guys who say, no, this game's great. This game is incredible. No, guys, you're really missing out. And then actually get super defensive of the game. Why would they get super defensive of it? Because they drop money on it, and they can't be wrong. This is why you have this situation. This is why you have bad games come out. I mean, the War Z is just the biggest possible example of that. You have this group of people that are neurotic for the War Z. They have Stockholm Syndrome. They are literally grateful to Hammerpoint for screwing them. They have convinced themselves that because they would never make a bad decision, because that reflects badly on them, right? They have convinced themselves that this is a good game, even though all signs point to it not being a good game. And they will actively attack anyone that says otherwise. That is beyond consumer irresponsibility. Going into the realms of crazy, going into the realms of actively working against other consumers. Like, basically being, I wouldn't even say a paid shill, because they actually paid for the privilege of being a shill. Incredible. Are you out of your minds? Why would you do that? And yet it will happen. It will happen with Aliens Colonial Marines. It happened with War Z. It happened with Duke Nukem Forever. It will continue to happen with people that drop money on games prior to it being released and then convince themselves that actually, no, they didn't buy a bad game, because they would never do that, because, of course, they're totally smart, would never be suckered in. I mean, what's the worst thing about being suckered in to a pre-order for a game that's terrible, right? Well, the worst thing is having to admit that you were the sucker. Nobody likes to think they're suckers. Nobody. And as a result, they'll make up excuses. It is a nasty cycle. Stop being involved in it, please. Think very, very hard before you pre-order a game. Think, well, would I have bought this anyway? Am I such a huge fan of the series that even if 20 reviews from people that I trusted came out and said, this is dreadful, even if my friends who I trust came and said to me, this is dreadful, even under those circumstances, I still would have bought the game, and I still would have played it anyway. If you are in that situation, all right, pre-order. Fine. If you have even the slightest doubt, for the love of God, wait. Please wait. You are doing more damage to yourself and to the industry than you can possibly realize. We as consumers have the ability to stop this bullshit for good. And we're the only ones who can do that. Publishers aren't going to do it. Devs aren't going to do it. It's up to you. Will you be part of that solution? Will you help fix this? Or will you continue to be part of the problem? I guess that's up to you. My name is TotalBiscuit, and I'll see you next time.